Hello, welcome back to the Breaking News Update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a very big lineup of news to share with all of you today. So today's date is May 30th, 2025, and it's Friday. Hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. We've got a lot of news to cover in today's update. We're going to start off talking about the upcoming negotiations that are supposed to be taking place between Russia and Ukraine this Monday on June 2nd in Istanbul, Turkey. So take a look at your screen here. We'll start off with this story. US open to freeze NATO expansion to help end Russia-Ukraine war. The US Special Envoy also said Ukraine's accession to NATO is not currently under consideration. We've said that to us. Ukraine coming into NATO is not on the table, Kellogg said. Okay, so this was during an interview on ABC News just yesterday. And apparently, another thing he stated in this interview was NATO's eastward expansion is a fair concern for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Okay, so the U.S. is basically open to forcing Ukraine to not join NATO, and this also includes a couple other countries. This would be like Georgia and Moldova, but we know a lot of this has to do with Ukraine. And I think this is very interesting because, NATO's already on the border of Russia. Why are they so concerned about Ukraine being in NATO? But many times in the past, Russia has stated they did not want Ukraine in NATO, and allegedly this could be a large part or reason why this war began to begin with. So we're going to talk more about this today and several other things. We also have some updates more about whether Ukraine is going to be attending these talks on Monday. Also, Hakan Fidan, who is the foreign minister out of Turkey, has arrived in Kiev today. He met with Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha out of Ukraine. They held a conference and they made some statements regarding the upcoming talks on Monday as well. So we're going to go over all these details. We're going to talk a lot about these negotiations that are supposed to be taking place here very soon. But real quick, I want to show you guys something. Take a look at this at Ukrainska Pravda. Ukraine will not accept Russia's demand to give up NATO membership, says Ukraine's foreign minister. So if you notice, this dates back all the way to April of this year, okay? So Ukraine has come out multiple times already stating that they will never give up this demand of, Ukraine never joining NATO. They want that to be completely open. They want to be able to join any organization, whether it even be the EU, for example. They don't want to be blocked in any way. That this has been a major demand for Ukraine. So it's just very interesting to me that the U.S. comes out and keeps, agreeing to things like this that they know Ukraine will not accept. Like, for example, recently when the U.S. stated they were going to recognize Crimea as Russian territory in a bid to end the war. So just absolutely insane what we're seeing. We're going to talk more about Keith Kellogg now. We're going to jump on over to a mainstream news report just real quick. Let me give you information on what he was stating during that interview. So from the Kiev Independent, NATO expansion fair concern for Putin, Kellogg says. You can see the dates here, May 30th, 2025. Here's a picture of Keith Kellogg. So he's a special envoy for Ukraine that U.S. President Donald Trump appointed to try to end this war. So it says here, NATO's eastward expansion is a fair concern for Russian President Vladimir Putin. U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy Keith Kellogg said in an interview with ABC News on May 29th. As one of the conditions for ending the full-scale war in Ukraine, Putin demanded a written pledge by NATO not to accept more Eastern European members, which would effectively block Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova from joining, Reuters reported earlier this week. Moscow has claimed that Ukraine's NATO aspirations were one of the key causes of its invasion. Russian aggression against Ukraine began in 2014 with the annexation of Crimea and the war in Donbass, a time when Kiev had little prospect of joining the alliance in the foreseeable future. When asked about whether Trump would commit to halting NATO expansion, Kellogg replied that it's a fair concern. Trump's special envoy also reiterated that Ukraine's membership in the alliance is not on the table, adding that Washington is not alone in its hesitation, as several other member states share similar doubts about Kiev's accession. And that's one of the issues Russia will bring up. They're also talking about Georgia. They're talking about Moldova. They're talking about, obviously, about Ukraine. And we're saying, okay, let's address this comprehensively, Kellogg said. According to him, a decision of NATO's expansion would ultimately be up to the U.S. president, and any agreement would likely involve negotiations between Trump, Putin, and President Volodymyr Zelensky to reach a settlement of Russia's war. Trump has repeatedly echoed Moscow's narrative that Ukraine's efforts to join NATO have been one of the root causes of the full-scale invasion. In March this year, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha rejected restrictions on joining international alliances and organizations, namely NATO and the EU, as part of a potential peace deal. That's exactly what I just showed you guys from that other report, okay? Finally, it says here Ukraine applied for NATO membership in September 2022, months after the outbreak of the full scale war. Country has not received a formal invitation as the 32 members have struggled to reach a consensus. So we know that, there are some nations that don't want Ukraine into NATO, but just crazy that this is even becoming part of this, this whole plan to try to end this war, and the U.S. wanted to agree to this, and really, we're just continuously seeing the U.S. siding with Russia and rewarding them for attacking Ukraine. So, pretty crazy news. We're going to hop in over to X now, and we'll talk about this some more. So, we're going to jump on over here with Jürgen Nodit. Advisors from the U.S. and European countries, Germany, France, Great Britain, and Kellogg are participating in the talks in Istanbul, according to ABC News. So, yeah, apparently European countries are going to be there as well to participate in these talks. I'm assuming this would be with Ukraine as well, and also Russia. Further statements from Trump's special envoy: the U.S. has received a memorandum from Ukraine with proposals for a ceasefire. The document contains 22 demands that the U.S. say are entirely acceptable. The Ukrainian side has not yet received the Russian memorandum. I advise Kiev to refrain from saying that Ukraine will not participate in peace talks with Russia. They need to show that they are serious. The main goal of the talks is a ceasefire and an end to the killings. Okay, so just a few more statements coming out from Kellogg here regarding these upcoming talks on Monday. So as far as we know, it's supposed to begin on June 2nd. So now from Roman Sheremetyev. Trump's envoy Keith Kellogg wants to halt NATO's eastward expansion in a major concession to Putin. Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipovsky replies with a masterstroke. NATO enlargement serves Russia's security interests. Where Russia borders NATO, there is peace. Where it doesn't, there is war. Hard to argue with a map. So I have to agree with that. He's got a point there. Any countries that are not in NATO don't get attacked, right? But Ukraine, for example, not being a part of NATO, was just openly attacked back in 2022 and has been at war with Russia for 3 years now. So he's got a point saying that, if Ukraine were to be in NATO, would it have been attacked by Russia? I would say personally, probably they wouldn't have been because, with the backing of NATO, I don't think Russia would want to take that chance. But there's been a lot of talks about whether Russia might attack a NATO member in the future, like, for example, some of the Baltic nations over here, maybe even Finland. But here's a map that came out. It says new border with NATO, enlargement of Russia-NATO common land border after Finland's NATO entry. Okay, so after Finland joined, look at the land border here with Russia in terms of NATO just being right on Russia's doorstep. And then, prior to that, we already had several Baltic nations that were already on the border of Russia. So isn't it interesting that they're so concerned about Ukraine being in NATO down here when this land border with Finland is much larger? So just crazy that Russia is so worried about that, but clearly they don't want Ukraine into NATO, and this is a big part of what Russia is trying to push for to end this war as well. Now from Noel Reports, Ukraine is ready to meet Russian representatives in Istanbul next week. Head of the presidential office, Andriy Yermak, confirmed, "We want a constructive discussion. That means we need to see the Russian draft they promised to provide," he said. Moscow's proposed June 2nd for the next round of talks. Okay, so here's the report today. Ukraine renews demand to see Russia's peace terms. Okay, so apparently they're open to meeting with Russia on Monday, but I'm not sure if the fact that they're not seeing Russia's draft memorandum, that maybe they might be like, okay, well, we're not going to go anymore. I'm not sure if that's going to be a part of this or not. But it says here Ukraine said Thursday it was ready to hold more talks with Russia in Istanbul next week, but again demanded that Moscow supply a document setting out its conditions for peace. So I'm not sure if maybe they'll come out last minute and be like, we're not going no more because you're not showing us this document. We'll have to see. But according to the presidential office of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, he's stating that they are going to be there on Monday. So now from Max 25, a senior Ukrainian official said the memorandum included provisions for a ceasefire on land, at sea, and in the air, with monitoring to be carried out by international partners, according to the New York Times. Ukrainian officials have said that Russia might try to ambush their delegation by proposing terms that are non-starters for Kiev, such as demanding that it withdraw from territories it still controls and then blame Ukraine for derailing the talks by refusing to engage. Here's the reports. Ukraine accuses Russia of stalling peace negotiations. Both Kiev and Moscow have been maneuvering to set the terms and tempo of any talks to end the fighting. Okay, so this is exactly what I told you guys yesterday, that I had a big feeling what's going to happen coming up on these talks next week is that Russia's going to come out and say that Ukraine is trying to derail and prevent any peace in this war. And I think that's a large reason why Russia does not want to hand over their memorandum document to Ukraine prior to meeting on Monday. Is also on top of that, I think they want to try to force Ukraine to agree to something that they know they will not agree to, and they want to give them a very little time to discuss it and look it over. And if not, if Ukraine chooses not to agree to anything on Monday, that's when Russia will come out and say, well, it's all Ukraine's fault. They're the reason why there is no peace in this war. And I have a feeling that's what they're trying to do. And that's exactly what the New York Times was writing about today. Now from Max 25, Russia to reiterate demands at Ukraine talks, seeks to shift blame, according to Verska. Verska is a Russian media outlet, by the way. Russia does not expect meaningful progress from the upcoming negotiations with Ukraine. Memorandum on a potential settlement will mirror long-standing Kremlin conditions. Okay, so more information talking about this. That Russia's plans are to either A, force Ukraine to agree to something that they know they won't agree to, and then B, would be shifting all the blame onto Ukraine after, when they know Ukraine will most likely disagree. And what's going to happen after that? Is the US going to pull out and stop supporting Ukraine if Russia succeeds in shifting the blame over to Ukraine? I guess a lot can really happen over here. Or is the US going to blame Russia and then start slamming sanctions onto Russia and economic pressure? It really depends on how things play out on Monday, but I think Monday is going to be a very interesting day, and this will be a major turning point in this war in terms of negotiations. Now from Noel Reports, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says Putin fundamentally supports a personal meeting with Zelensky and Trump. Such contacts are in demand, but require serious preparation. He also confirmed Russia's delegation will head to Istanbul for a new round of talks with Kiev on June 2nd. So the Kremlin coming out and confirming that their delegation will be there in Istanbul on Monday. But aside from that, apparently he's stating that Putin fundamentally supports a personal meeting with Trump and Zelensky. So I guess he's kind of open to it, but not necessarily coming out and saying that he will be there. So we know that that Zelensky was trying to get Putin to go to Turkey several weeks back on May 16th at the last round of talks for trying to end this war, and Putin completely decided not to go. So I'm not sure if he's going to be attending these talks. Most likely not, but they are trying to set up some sort of talks with Zelensky, Trump, and Putin in the future directly. Now from Anton Gerashenko, Turkish Minister of Foreign Affairs Hakan Fidan said that Turkey can use the potential of the negotiations between the Ukrainian and Russian sides towards peace. I came from Moscow, shared my observations and assessments of the negotiations, shared all the details this afternoon. I will be received by Mr. President Zelensky and other important Ukrainian officials. We are coming to a crossroads in the war. We have two options. Either we turn a blind eye to the continuation of this war, or we will achieve a permanent peace by the end of this year. Turkey believes that the only way is to achieve peace and a ceasefire immediately. What role can Turkey actually play? Exactly this. Its potential to communicate with both sides can be used to end the war, he said. Okay, so Turkey doing everything they can to mediate. This Turkish foreign minister, Hakan Fidan, he was just in Moscow just over the last few days. Now he's in Kiev to meet with the government over here to see what he can do to try to mediate and end this war, and probably gather up details prior to this meeting that's supposed to be held on Monday. So now from Bliskovka, Ukraine wants to receive a memorandum from Russia ahead of the second round of talks, said Deputy Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha. We are interested in continuing these meetings and want to end the war this year, Sybiha noted. At the same time, he stated that Ukraine would welcome Donald Trump's involvement in a potential meeting with Zelensky and Putin. Okay, so these were statements coming out from Andriy Sybiha right here, the foreign minister out of Ukraine. Okay, so they still want to see this memorandum from Russia. I'm thinking that Russia's not going to give it to them at all. They've already stated they're going to wait till Monday to slam it into Ukraine's face, try to force them to agree to something. And that's probably when they're going to shift the blame. I can already see this coming right now. You guys can let me know what you think on that. But yeah, apparently Ukraine is still open to having Trump and Zelensky meeting with Putin as well in the future. So we'll see if they set that up. Now for military news UA, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said that Ukraine now produces 40% of its own military equipment. Ukraine has become a world leader in drone technology and has increased the production of military equipment by 35 times. He added that Ukraine is striving for greater self-sufficiency and reduced dependence on foreign arms supplies. I mean, yeah, so another huge statement. This is in regards to Ukraine's military production output. I mean, they are massively producing military equipment right now. 40% of their own military equipment is produced inside of Ukraine, guys. I mean, imagine just over time, Ukraine is going to continue to do this even after the war ends. They're going to continue to expand their military capabilities, and they want to be a strong nation, okay? They want to make sure that this never happens ever again. And if they have a strong military, Russia might never attack them. So, yeah, just crazy news coming out from Ukraine. They are continuously expanding their military, which is good for them. Now from Bliskovka, a 5-story building in Belozersk, Donetsk region, was partially destroyed after a drone hit, according to the state's emergency service. 2 people may be trapped under the rubble. So this was damage to another residential building inside of Ukraine. This was a drone directly striking a 5-story building in the Donetsk region in the city of Belozersk. So you can see all the damage here. I mean, look at that gaping hole. It looks like it was hit by a missile. I mean, that's a lot of damage just from one drone. That was a very powerful drone that struck this building. And very sad to see this. Looks like 2 people might be under the rubble. And we might have had some injuries here, potentially even some people that died. So once again, civilian infrastructure inside Ukraine being damaged. Now for NOAA reports, according to information from local emergency services, a fire broke out at a gas storage facility in occupied Yenikiev. So Yenikiev is a city in eastern side of Ukraine in the Donetsk region. This would be in occupied territory by the Russians. Allegedly, there was a gas storage facility that exploded over there. Not sure how that happened. Maybe Ukraine fired a drone or a rocket or something over there, destroying it. Considering that it was gas storage, we've seen Ukraine doing things like this in the past. And something I wanted to note is I thought it was interesting that we haven't seen Ukraine going after any like oil depots or anything recently. You guys let me know what you think down in the comments why Ukraine wouldn't be doing that. And we basically haven't seen any attacks for the most part on oil refineries or oil depots, really, at least any confirmed hits, at least too much in the recent past, ever since we had that agreement between Russia and Ukraine that they would not strike each other's energy facilities. So let me know what you think on that. But yeah, huge explosion here in that picture. Now for Max 25, the Russians hit trolleybus depot in Kharkiv with shaheeds, 2 people injured. 1 trolley bus was completely destroyed. 18 others suffered varying degrees of damage. More than 30 residential buildings were also damaged. 8 people were injured in Russian attack on Vasiliev Kutir, if I'm saying that correctly, in the Kharkiv region. So up in northeastern Ukraine in the city of Kharkiv, it looks like we had drones striking a trolley bus depot. Okay, so multiple of these trolleys just completely destroyed or damaged. And yeah, just once again, Russia attacking civilian infrastructure repeatedly inside of Ukraine. And, you know, the Russian officials out of the Kremlin just the other day came out saying they only go after military targets. This does not look like a military target to me. And just once again, more evidence of Russia continuously destroying Ukrainian civilian infrastructure in their nation. So very sad. Now we've got some videos here coming out from the Kursk region of Russia last night. Looks like Ukraine was firing some drones into Russia. We didn't have any confirmed hits on like military industrial sites or anything like that, but we had some explosions in Kursk, and I wanted to show you guys some of the videos coming out. So let's go ahead and jump into this first video here. Okay, so it looks like in this video we had a drone crashing into something. Looks like maybe a side of a building or something like that. But nonetheless, yeah, drones were entering into the Kursk region last night and crashing into some sort of objects. We've got another video here as well. Okay, so just a quick video right here, 8 seconds long. Can't really see anything, but in the distance we hear a massive explosion. I'm not sure if that was some sort of drone blowing up or maybe it was a rocket or a missile being fired over here. We know HIMARS missiles do strike a lot inside the Kursk region, so it is possible maybe it was a HIMARS attack, but nonetheless an explosion over here as well. So some drones attacking into the Kursk region last night. Now from Bliskovka, Ukrainian Directorate of Intelligence Operation in Vladivostok. This morning, 2 powerful explosions occurred near a marine training ground. According to local media reports, the first explosion hit a checkpoint area. The second targeted the location of personnel and command of a Russian military unit. Russian manpower, military equipment, and special assets were struck. This took place near the landing bay, which is used by Russian forces for Pacific Fleet drills. So, some sort of explosions taking place over here in Vladivostok. Okay, this is a port city, far eastern Russia, way out there next to North Korea. And Russia's military is located out here. Reportedly, we had some explosions. We got a video here we can show you here real quick. Okay, that's it for the sound on this video, but this is like a picture of the training grounds over here inside of Vladivostok. There was an emergency helicopter that showed up to evacuate people after these explosions took place. You can see emergency vehicles here showing up as well. So apparently Ukraine's intelligence directorate carried out some sort of strike and explosion over there in this training ground in Vladivostok. And it looks like Russian manpower, military equipment, and special assets were struck after these explosions were taking place. So crazy hits over here in Vladivostok. Now from Special Kirsten Cat, new Russian Dan-M jet drone shot down over the Black Sea by Ukraine Air Defense on May 29, 2025, which was yesterday. Ukrainian forces used a mobile air defense system developed by the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, or HUR, to shoot down a Russian jet-powered drone near Odessa. The system, equipped with R-73 missiles, was operated by Ukrainian personnel trained by HUR. The target, believed to be a new model of the Russian UAV, likely the Dan-M, was detected and destroyed during a nighttime attack. The drone crashed into the Black Sea. Okay, so this is a video coming out from Ukraine's defense intelligence. And yeah, reportedly they shot down this new rocket drone that was fired into Ukraine recently. We had this report yesterday. I'll show you guys a picture of it if you remember. It was like a red looking missile that was converted into a rocket drone. Well, allegedly, they actually shot one of these down just yesterday as well. Maybe that's why we had these reports of these drones entering Ukraine, is because they actually shot one down. You can see it there crashing into the Black Sea. And Ukraine used like a mobile air defense system with R-73 missiles. These are the same missiles that they attached to the Magura V5s. The naval drones that they used down in the Black Sea that shot down several helicopters and also like Su-30s down in the Black Sea. So crazy information there. They shot one down yesterday. So here's a picture of this Dan-M rocket drone. Okay, if you guys remember this, I showed you this yesterday. Ukraine was claiming that new rocket drones have been entering into Ukraine. These were apparently former missiles that were converted into rocket drones. Okay, so these are a new type of weapon that are being used, fired from Crimea by the Russians into Ukraine. And allegedly they shot one down yesterday. Now for military news UA, Ukraine will receive almost $3 billion from Japan within the framework of the ERA mechanism, Prime Minister of Ukraine Shmyhal, that's Denis Shmyhal, reported. These funds are provided by revenues from frozen Russian assets and will be used to finance priority budget expenditures. Okay, so $3 billion coming from Japan that will be financed by frozen Russian assets. Okay, major support coming from Japan. They just announced several billion, like not even a month or two ago. Now they're giving another several billion over to Ukraine as well. So huge support from Japan. Now from Kvist, using gold allowed the parties to avoid dollar transactions, which could be complicated or subject to sanctions by the US Treasury Department. Okay, so this is regarding a story that came out yesterday, actually, that says Putin paid Iran almost 4 tons of gold for drones. Okay, so more evidence here showing that, Russia will do anything to avoid sanctions and try to, pay other countries for drones. For example, we know Iran supplies a lot of the Shahed drones for Russia in this war effort against Ukraine. So apparently they paid them 4 tons of gold already for all these drones. And, these are just more efforts of them trying to evade sanctions, just like they do with their whole shadow fleet operation, trying to use these oil tankers to transport oil to countries like India and China. So crazy update here. Now for Max 25, as long as we have the South and the sea, we have a chance to return all the occupied territories, said the Secretary of the National Security Committee, Roman Kostenko. Okay, this is out of Ukraine. He was speaking at the Odessa Forum yesterday. You can see here, Black Sea Security Forum. This is what he stated, that as long as they control the South and the sea, which I would assume is the Black Sea, they have a chance to return all occupied territories. That includes Crimea, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Luhansk, Donetsk region, that he believes that in the future they can return all these territories back to Ukraine. You guys can let me know what you think on that. If you think they have the ability to do that militarily, or do you think he's talking about diplomatic measures that would be exercised later in the future to try to return these territories? Very interesting statement coming out from Roman Kostenko today. Now, from Savchenko Volodymyr, the EU is planning to create a security center in the Black Sea, according to Kaja Kallis. The Maritime Security Center will monitor the most important infrastructure and shipping facilities in the Black Sea. Monitoring will be carried out in real time from space and on the seabed. In addition, the goal of Brussels' Black Sea strategy is to support the creation of regional transport infrastructure, in particular to increase the mobility of troops and equipment so they can be where they are needed, when they are needed, Kallis said. In addition, the EU intends to expand its influence in the region by strengthening cooperation with Ukraine and Moldova, as well as Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. Okay, so the EU wants to get more involved in the Black Sea. They're going to be creating a security center out here. Wonder if that has anything to do with what Kostenko was mentioning, how he was saying that if they control the south and also the sea, they could return all these territories. So it looks like the EU could be stepping up big, also helping out Ukraine controlling the Black Sea and setting up a security center. So very big news there. Now for Max 25, Ministry of Defense presented the already codified fiber optic FPV drone Stalker. Today, the manufacturer is scaling the production line of two models, Stalker XO10 and Stalker XO15. The manufacturer is currently working on developing a coil with 20 to 25 kilometers of fiber on it. So here's a fiber optic drone that's been unveiled or started to be produced inside of Ukraine, and Ukraine's Ministry of Defense presented this new drone called the Stalker drone. Okay, and you can see here, I believe this is where the coil of the fiber optic line would be on the inside, and Ukraine uses fiber optic lines to help prevent them from being taken down by electronic warfare. It allows them to be more effective and hit their targets, and they're not affected by electronic warfare systems. Okay, so new drone that Ukraine is working on right now. Now from Jay in Kiev, Putin just continues winning the lottery. China no longer sells drones to Ukraine, but will continue selling to Russia. Italy won't allow Ukraine to strike Russian territory with Italian weapons. Serbia will cut off Ukraine's ammo. Okay, so yeah, these were two big hits yesterday to Ukraine. We heard about this yesterday, that China's not selling drones no more to Ukraine, also to Western nations, but they're going to be selling them to Russia still. That clearly shows which side China stands on. And this was a big one yesterday, too. Italy is not going to allow Ukraine to strike inside of Russian territory with their weapons. And finally, we heard about this yesterday. Also, Serbia cutting off Ukraine's ammo. And that was apparently because the Russians were accusing Serbia of selling weapons or ammo to Ukraine. And they didn't come out and say that they were actually doing that. But yeah, so Russia's intelligence accused them of doing so, and the president, Vucic, came out and said, here, I will block the sale of ammunition by Serbian companies to Ukraine. That's what he stated in response to that, that they were going to stop doing that, blocking the sale to Ukraine. And then on top of that, we had this story that came out today, Max 25. An explosion occurred at the Serbian ammunition factory, Krusik, yesterday. Russia accused it of supplying weapons to Ukraine. At 7:40 in the morning, an explosive mixture was initiated, as a result of which one worker was injured and 4 workers were concussed. So look at that, how fast that happened. Right when we're hearing that Russia's accusing Serbia of supplying Ukraine with weapons, on the back end, even though they still support Russia, fully to the max here, we're seeing the Serbians also supplying weapons to Ukraine allegedly, and then we had this massive explosion over at one of their warehouses that produce ammunition. So that's probably what he was talking about when he said he was going to block the sale of ammunition going to Ukraine. Just decided to start blowing up ammunition warehouses inside of Serbia. So crazy news coming out of here, guys. We're probably going to be seeing more developments coming out of Serbia here in the next few days, maybe more explosions. Now for Vicegrad 24, Defense Express reports that Ukraine can receive up to 10 Iris-T air defense batteries and hundreds of interceptor missiles as part of the German military aid package worth $5.7 billion announced a few days ago. So out of Germany, yeah, apparently Ukraine can be receiving 10 Iris-T air defense batteries, okay, hundreds of interceptor missiles. That's a lot of air defense equipment going to Ukraine, and that's really good because that's something they're lacking a lot right now. They don't have a lot of air defense batteries, and on top of that, they've been running out of air defense interceptors. So that should be helping out Ukraine a little bit in the meantime, but I'm sure they probably need a lot more than just that. Also, take a look at this from TASS news agency out of Russia. This is Russia's state news service, okay? And it says 12 Russian servicemen involved in downing the first US F16 fighter jet in the Special Military Operations Zone have been paid 15 million rubles or $195,000, Forrest told TASS. Now, take this with a grain of salt. I mean, we haven't confirmed this at all that a Ukrainian F-16 fighter jet was actually shot down, but we did hear a story a couple weeks back. If you guys remember, I reported to you that there was a Ukrainian F-16 fighter jet that experienced what they called a security situation as they were trying to intercept some Russian drones entering into the country. And this F-16 reportedly had some sort of security situation. The pilot had to eject, the plane crashed, and this is the second time that I know of that we've had an F-16 fighter jet crashing inside of Ukraine. So apparently the Russians are trying to take credit for that and say they actually shot this thing down. This is something the Russians have been saying from the very beginning. They were going to award any Russian soldiers with money for the first F-16 fighter jet to be shot down. They wanted it as like a trophy or something. So I don't know for sure if that happened, but this is what Russian state media was reporting today. Now for Max 25, a credibility test for the Americans. Macron calls on Trump to take responsibility towards Putin, according to BFM TV. If Russia confirms that it is not ready to make peace, Washington must confirm its commitment to sanctioning Moscow, he said. I spoke 48 hours ago with President Trump, who expressed his impatience. The question now is, what do we do about it? We Europeans are ready, stressed Macron. So Macron putting a little bit of pressure on Trump and saying, hey, I understand you're frustrated already, but what are you going to do about it? Are we going to finally start sanctioning Russia? What's going to happen here? Start putting some action behind this and quit saying every 2 weeks you're going to allow, Putin another 2 weeks. We've been seeing that for over a month now. 2 weeks, to allow Putin to have more time to carry on this invasion in Ukraine. And by now, the U.S. should have been doing something, right? They should have been sanctioning Russia. But Trump claims right now that he does not want to sabotage peace negotiations with Russia and Ukraine, and putting pressure on Russia with sanctions might do that, is what he claims. So, this was Emmanuel Macron, this was his response to Trump recently on delaying. Now for Bandera Fella, you want peace, we want victory. Victory, not peace at any price. Z propagandist Solovyev, stripping away every last illusion about Kremlin diplomacy. One line buries every fake negotiation, every backroom whisper about settlements, every Western fantasy of compromise. Russia doesn't want talks, it wants submission. It wants Ukraine silent, broken, erased. Show this to the White House. There's no point in waiting 2 more weeks. The mask is off, the intent is clear. Yeah, this is exactly how I feel as well. I mean, we've seen so much evidence already that Russia's not ready to end this war. I just want to show you guys a quick clip coming out from Russian state TV. As Solovyev here, this is him right here, Russian propagandist on this state broadcast, and he's going to be stating again that, they don't want peace in Ukraine, they want victory. That means they want total domination over Ukraine and wipe them off the face of the earth. Take a look.
Мы на сегодняшний день приблизились к миру или нет? Если у нас был тренд ключевой...
Вы опять не понимаете, это вам нужен мир.
Мне нужен,
да.
А он всем нужен мир.
Нет, нам победа нужна. У нас совсем другая задача. Наша задача обеспечить процветание нашей страны в безопасности на поколение вперед. Если для этой цели должны перестать существовать нацистские режимы и поддерживающие их политические элиты, так и будет. У нас нет задачи сохранения украинской политической нации.
Но об этом же не
правильно,
об этом
поэтому
говорим.
Мир нам не нужен.
То есть нам не нужен диалог
победа.
с Западом сейчас, в который мы все пошли.
Нужно,
да?
понимаете? Наши условия очень простые. Должны быть соблюдены наши национальные интересы. Мир любой ценой, перемирие. Мы ни разу этого не говорили. Ни разу.
Мы на сегодняшний день приблизились.
So if you notice there, he says, peace at any price, even if it means continuing on this invasion into Ukraine. And not only is he blaming Ukraine, but he's also talking about the West as well and saying that the West needs to cease to not exist as well. So just crazy what comes out of Russia here. They clearly show that they don't want peace in Ukraine. They want to continue this invasion and keep attacking Ukraine, potentially even attacking Europe at some point. Now from Anton Yushchenko, Russia's UN ambassador to Nebenzia, speaking at a UN Security Council meeting, no new anti-Russian sanctions, arms supplies to Ukraine, and other steps hostile to Russia will prevent the inevitable military defeat of Zelensky's regime. He's plainly saying that Russia has no intention of ending the war. I mean, what does that state there? If he says inevitable military defeat of Zelensky's regime, that they want to continue the fighting. Take a look at this.
До тех пор, пока в Киеве будут пытаться затянуть войну и провоцировать Россию, нанося удары по жилой и гражданской инфраструктуре на нашей территории, мы будем продолжать нашу специальную военную операцию и уничтожать объекты, связанные с военным потенциалом киевского режима. И никакие новые антироссийские санкции, поставки оружия Украине и другие враждебные по отношению к России шаги не предотвратят неизбежное военное поражение режима Зеленского. До тех пор, пока в Киеве...
Okay, so think about this, guys. Trump comes out all the time and says, Ukraine needs to stop speaking a certain way, stop provoking Russia, stop, claiming that they're going to continue this war or whatnot. This is exactly what Russia says. I mean, look at these statements coming out directly from their representatives, like this one here at the UN, stating that no sanctions will stop Russia, nothing will prevent them from taking over Ukraine, stopping Ukraine's army, and they'll continue the fighting here. So just crazy that we see this coming out, yet at the same time, the U.S. is saying we need to get to peace. So if this is Russia's stance on this war, they clearly do not want peace. That's very evident to see that. Now from NOAA Reports, a new U.S. Air Force Commission RAND report says NATO and U.S. forces would have a clear edge over Russia in a conventional war thanks to air power. The analysis finds that NATO would quickly gain air superiority, allowing it to strike Russian forces, disrupt logistics, and tilt the battlefield. Despite concerns over drone tech and ammo production, the report says NATO's offensive potential far outweighs Russia. U.S. and NATO air power would overwhelm Russian invasion of European ally, analysis concludes. Okay, so apparently a new report coming out proving that if Russia were to attack NATO, that NATO could overwhelm them just with superior air power alone. So you guys let me know what you think on that. Do you think that Russia would be just wiped out very quickly if they were to try to attack, let's say, for example, Finland, maybe one of the Baltic nations like Estonia or maybe even Latvia, which I believe they border right onto Russia as well. And there's been a lot of reports about that NATO could be attacked at some point by Russia in the future. I think it's a highly unlikely scenario right now, but in the future, in the next few years, some NATO members have been warning about that. So apparently, according to this report, they would destroy Russia if that were to be the case. Let me know what you guys think. Now from Bliskovka, air defense forces neutralized 56 out of 90 enemy drones. 26 UAVs were shot down by firepower. Another 30 were locally lost, suppressed by electronic warfare. Enemy airstrikes were recorded in 12 locations. So here's a report coming out today showing 90 enemy drones entering into Ukraine. Looks like some missiles were fired as well into Ukraine. And looks like they brought down at least half or more just being shot down. We're not seeing as high of numbers as we have been seeing recently over the last week or so in terms of how many being shot down. We were seeing like an 80-90% success rate in a lot of these shot down. Looks like that number is starting to drop back to more close to like 50 to 60% on average. But there's your daily update on the drones going into Ukraine. Now, our final update to the Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of May 30th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In our final update here, Russia's losses as of May 30th, 1,140 troops, 2 AFVs, 74 vehicles and fuel tanks, 1 tank, 35 artillery systems, 71 UAVs, 1 MLRS, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. All right, so just about average what we've been seeing over the last week or two now. Troop losses right around 1,000, 1,100 is about average what we've been seeing. These numbers here, tanks and AFVs, just really been falling off the cliff. We're seeing very little vehicles being destroyed. Same with vehicles and fuel tanks here. These numbers been sitting right around 100 or less for about a week now. Artillery systems about average, 30 or so we've been seeing for the most part. So these numbers really not fluctuating a whole lot still. Just want to give you your update there, let you know what Russia's been losing over the last 24 hours. And lots of very big news coming out from this war today, guys. We're going to continue to monitor to see what happens here. And these upcoming negotiations that are supposed to be taking place on Monday, on June 2nd. So let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section, but that's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell, that way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.